So let's take an analysis of the latest coronavirus numbers here in Australia. Let's go to our analyst, Casey Briggs. Hi there, Casey. How's it looking nationally?
Lorna, another day, as yesterday was, of very positive-looking numbers, but with one big caveat, testing rates over the Easter long weekend have gone down, and so we're just waiting to see if these positive signs, which would be the best looking numbers we've had in several weeks, will continue into the week. 39 new cases confirmed so far today, 9 in New South Wales, 8 in Queensland, 13 in Victoria. That brings us now to a total of 6,360. With Queensland approaching 1,000. The Northern Territory on 28 hasn't had a new case in more than a week. Very good signs there. Sadly, we have had two more deaths. We'll just move off that. 2 more deaths recorded today, taking us to 61 in total around the country. Both of the new deaths reported today are in New South Wales. Both were passengers on the Ruby Princess cruise ship. So the curve is looking, in a broad sense, relatively good. This drop-off of new cases is continuing. Despite that, Tasmania's put almost 5,000 people into quarantine in the northwest of the state. People associated with, and the families of people associated with 2 hospitals in the region. Why are we doing that, given that the curve has been so positive? Well, lots of this drop has been because of the drop in overseas arrivals. We've closed the borders, we've turned off the tap to imported cases, but local infections are proving a bit harder to suppress, and they're the real risk. If they get out of control, then we could be in a much worse position. So that's why, despite the fact that Tasmania has never recorded more than 11 cases in a single day, 5,000 people, up to 5,000 people are being put into quarantine. That is trending upwards. Tasmania's cases have been trending upwards. Most of those 11 recorded yesterday were associated with this hospital in the northwest.
And presumably, Casey, with the numbers still relatively low, the hospitals in Australia are coping well.
Yeah, and in fact, some of the hospitals, it seems like hospitals may actually have less people in them at the moment than they normally would. We know that in ordinary circumstances we have intensive care capacity of around 2,000. Plans have been to more than double that for the peak of this pandemic. At the moment, just 240 people or so are in hospital, around 85 of those in intensive care. So we're absolutely not seeing the absolute horror scenarios that we could have seen. And as I said, we may actually be seeing less people in our hospitals at the moment. This data, gathered by a team of researchers at ASIMS in South Australia, shows you the South Australian Emergency Department occupancy rate. It's largely full, usually as full as most emergency departments are, until early March, when South Australia started recording increasing numbers of cases, and it dropped down to about 60%. So there are just less people in emergency departments now. Could be a combo of reasons for that. People staying away for fear of getting the virus, people re-evaluating how serious their condition is or their need for treatment is in the wake of this pandemic, people heeding the warnings to not come to the ED and clog up hospital resources if they don't need to. But remains to be seen, is this a calm before the storm? Will our hospitals come under increasing pressure in coming weeks? But at the moment, they're doing okay.
Yeah, one nurse said to me, actually, Casey, another possible suggestion is that with the kids not in schools, they're not passing other viruses that would be prevalent at this time of year. They're not passing them on to each other, so therefore the admission rates are down as a result of that. What about overseas numbers? They vary greatly, don't they?
They do, and we'll look at one country in particular in a second, but 1.85 million confirmed cases around the world, 557,000 of those in the US. Now we've known for some time these numbers are only as good as as the number of people you test. You can only find a case if you test for it, and these countries have varying. Every country has a different testing regime. The US probably has many more cases than that we haven't been testing for. They haven't been testing for, and 114,000 deaths. The US, 22,000 leading that list. 12,000 of those have come in the past week. So rapid escalation of deaths in the US, and it's worth just bearing in mind as I skip through to here. The US is not just sort of one uniform outbreak. There have been pockets of concern, states of particular concern. The biggest concern, New York. This chart shows you the deaths recorded in these 5 states each day on a rolling average. At the moment, New York, which is seeing these horrific pictures of mass graves and of hospitals really under pressure is seeing more than 750 deaths a day. Another state, like California, which the outbreak started at a very similar point, but California locked down earlier, California took steps earlier than New York, is only recording around 36 deaths a day. It really shows the difference, and it's, I guess, one of the reasons that we're seeing the actions we're seeing in Tasmania today, the difference in early lockdown and jumping on outbreaks early can do.
Yeah, and I guess as well, probably, the proximity to which people live, the closeness and those high-rises in New York having an effect there as well. Casey Briggs, thanks very much for that. Different states are dealing with things differently, different countries as well.